Some years ago, I met Laura, a bright, loving, and dedicated woman. Since childhood, she had learned to put others' needs ahead of her own, helping at home, supporting her friends, and carefully attending to every request she received. Over time, that habit of pleasing others went from being a virtue to becoming a silent burden. Laura was exhausted at the end of each day, with no energy for her own dreams nor time to listen to her inner voice. At first glance, no one noticed her suffering. She kept smiling, fulfilling her responsibilities and projecting strength. But inside, she felt empty, as if every act of generosity was stealing small fragments of her essence. Laura's story is just one of the most common examples of silent self-abandonment. It is not about dramatic gestures or decisions that abruptly change life, but a constant drip of renunciations. Saying yes when the body asks for a no, postponing a personal project to help a family member, ignoring one's own signs of exhaustion so as not to disappoint others. Little by little, a wall of resentment and disconnection builds up, a shield that prevents recognizing that the root of the discomfort comes from lack of self-choice. This phenomenon is not exclusive to Laura. In our societies, the value of giving and selflessness is celebrated as an almost heroic attribute. Those who put others first receive praise, social approval, and sometimes tangible recognition. However, that external applause often masks an inner void that grows with each omission of oneself. The paradox is that, in the end, that extreme giving to others ends up undermining our capacity to give the best of ourselves. A tired mind, a wounded heart, and a fatigued spirit cannot nourish projects, relationships, or long-term purposes. To illustrate this process more visually, Mario Alonso Puig uses a metaphor of the dry garden. Imagine a garden that, apparently, keeps its paths well outlined and its statues in perfect condition. The flowers, however, have been losing their color and fragrance. The leaves wither and the soil, compacted by neglect, stops receiving nutrients. From afar, the garden keeps some harmony, but when approaching, we discover an ecosystem in crisis. That static beauty does not resist contact with the reality of life. It needs rain, attention, and constant care. Your life, just like that garden, flourishes when you attend to your deep needs, watering your dreams, fertilizing your self-esteem, and pruning limiting beliefs. When you choose another before yourself, you neglect the small essential tasks that maintain your well-being. Rest time, spaces for creativity, moments of reflection. Little by little, the heat of stress and demand dries your petals, until one day you discover you no longer recognize your own inner landscape. Mario Alonso Puig's invitation is to transform that dry garden into a vibrant orchard. To do this, it is fundamental to renounce the idea that prioritizing yourself is selfish. Watering your desires does not mean neglecting those you love, but guaranteeing that your capacity to give does not run out. Fertilizing your personal energies is not a whim. It is an investment that multiplies your joy, your mental clarity, and your strength to accompany others. The metaphor reminds us that the balance between giving and receiving is the key to sustainable flourishing. Before diving into the 5 essential changes that happen when you choose yourself first, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. This way, you won't miss any videos about personal development, emotional growth, and practical tools from Mario Alonso Puig. If you stay with us until the end, you will discover simple exercises to start watering your own garden today, inspiring testimonials, and recommendations that will transform how you relate to yourself and your environment. Also, I encourage you to participate in the comments. At the end of the video, I will share a very special keyword. If you write it in the comments section, you will receive a personalized mention in my next video and become part of our community of self-love learners. Don't forget to stay until the closing to learn that magic word and be part of this journey of discovery. Why is it so crucial to put yourself first? The answer lies in how our mind and body respond to self-care. When you dedicate time to listen to yourself, attend your emotions, and nurture your talents, you generate an internal source of energy that translates into motivation, creativity, and resilience against adversity. That source is not inexhaustible, but it can be preserved and expanded if you manage it wisely. By choosing yourself first, you take responsibility for your own well-being. You recognize that your dreams, mental health, and emotional balance are as valuable as anyone else's. This act of self-choice breaks the belief that self-love is a privilege. In reality, it is a requirement for integral health. Without a solid foundation of love and respect toward yourself, any life project wobbles. Your relationships may become codependent, your work performance suffers, and your happiness is indefinitely postponed. Moreover, when you choose yourself first, you model a powerful example for those around you. By seeing you care for yourself, your children, friends, and colleagues learn to value their own needs. You create an environment where attention and mutual respect are the norm, not the exception. This multiplying effect shows that self-choice is not an isolated act, but the starting point of a chain of transformations that positively impact your community. With this beginning, we have put the problem of silent self-abandonment in perspective, understood the metaphor of the dry garden, so you become an active part of this experience, and grasp the importance of choosing yourself first. Next, we will explore how this shift generates 5 profound transformations: the blossoming of your inner world, the recovery of your authentic voice, the establishment of healthy boundaries, the transformation of your relationships, and finally, the achievement of inner peace and renewed clarity. Join me and discover how to water your own garden so it blooms again in all its splendor. The first profound change you will experience is the blossoming of your inner world. When you decide to gift yourself a few minutes a day to silence external noise, you discover space where your breathing takes center stage and your thoughts can finally surface without hurry or interruption. It is in that silence where memories emerge of those dreams that once made you shine intensely. Perhaps you dreamed of painting landscapes in watercolor, playing an instrument that resonated in your heart, or exploring unknown cities with the curiosity of a daring traveler. Those desires, buried under mountains that should be in others' obligations, now act as a powerful fertilizer for your energy. With each brushstroke of your past, you reactivate the spark of curiosity that ignites your inner world, and remember that your essence transcends the roles you play. Reconnecting with your own story also means recognizing what you most value in your deepest core. When you sit down to write your unbreakable principles, you discover values that, if not cultivated, would leave an impossible-to-fill void. The creativity that drives you to imagine new horizons, the freedom to make authentic decisions, the justice that guides your ethical sense, and the human closeness that connects you with others. Each time you choose to honor one of those values with a concrete action, like dedicating 15 minutes to writing without censorship or clearly expressing your opinion in a conversation, you are fertilizing the roots of your identity and strengthening the soil of your convictions. This act of coherence between what you feel and what you do creates a direct bridge to your authenticity. The more you cross that bridge, the more stable and vibrant your inner garden becomes. But flourishing requires going beyond the surface and healing the emotional wounds that block your genuine growth. Perhaps deep within your being you keep memories of moments when you decided to stay silent so as not to bother others, or gave up your desires so others could feel relief. Identifying those painful scenes, bringing them to light with compassion, and speaking to your most vulnerable self with word of comfort is a transformative exercise. Imagine wrapping your wounded self in a warm, safe embrace, recognizing the courage you had in enduring that situation, and giving yourself permission to heal. By dissolving the armor of self-criticism and resentment, you release a torrent of emotional energy once trapped, allowing new roots to grow deep and strong, ready to hold flowers of joy and confidence. In that freed garden, self-limiting thoughts often sprout strongly, like weeds threatening to choke your buds of hope. Each time you find out I don't deserve or I'm not enough, you can intervene with a conscious affirmation, I allow myself to care for myself without guilt, or my well-being is as important as others. These small interventions act as daily watering that strengthens positive inner dialogue and reinforces a conviction that you deserve space and time for yourself. Over time, these affirmations become rooted seeds that thrive, and at the first sprout of doubt, internal reminders of your unconditional worth emerge. To anchor this flourishing, writing a letter to yourself 6 months from now is a revealing exercise. In that letter, describe yourself in detail, how you like to feel, which activities you will have resumed, what achievements you will have reached, and what lessons you will have learned. Include physical sensations like lightness in your chest when dedicating quality time, and emotional ones like the satisfaction of hearing your inner voice without fear. Keep that letter in a visible place, like your nightstand or refrigerator, and review it weekly. Each reading connects you with your future vision and reinforces your commitment to keep alive the image of the person you aspire to be, turning each week into a conscious step toward that flourishing self. Another valuable exercise is taking inventory of your internal resources, recognizing qualities like the resilience that help you overcome crises, the empathy that connects you with others, or the adaptability in unexpected situations reminds you that you already have powerful seeds within. By describing how each strength has allowed you to overcome challenges, you reinforce the certainty that you have the necessary elements to keep growing. This recognition of your own resources acts as a constant reminder of your innate capacity, reducing fear of change and stimulating confidence to face new challenges. Likewise, integrating the practice of gratitude journal into your routine strengthens your inner world. Each night, write down 3 things you are grateful for, from a kind gesture received to a moment of clarity during meditation. This daily record trains you to focus on internal abundance, and upon rereading, you realize the richness of your own garden, even on gray days. Gratitude acts as fertilizer that stimulates the growth of positive emotions and reinforces mindfulness toward your own life experience. Creative experimentation is also an essential component in this flourishing. Dedicate time to artistic activities without judging the outcome. Doodling, writing an impromptu poem, or composing a simple melody. By releasing the need for perfection, you connect with the playful energy inside you, the one that flows freely and curiously. This periodic creative practice acts like a ray of sunshine that illuminates the darkest corners of your inner garden, encouraging authentic expression and reminding you of the pleasure of exploration without predetermined goals. Finally, visualize your inner world as a living garden in constant change. Observe which areas need contemplative watering, your daily reflection, which require conscious pruning, removal of limiting beliefs, and which enjoy full creative sun, the expression of your passions. Keeping this metaphor present in your daily life helps you take responsibility for caring for your own emotional ecosystem. By doing so, you learn to anticipate and attend to your internal needs before they manifest as exhaustion or disconnection, thus allowing the flowers of your authentic self to unfold their splendor in every aspect of your life. Another essential step in your inner transformation lies in the deep impact of self-acceptance. For years, many of us have lived under pressure of unattainable ideals or external standards, trying to fit into molds that did not reflect our essence. That constant struggle to please or prove external worth consumes vital energy and fuels an inner dialogue full of judgments and reproaches. Self-acceptance, on the other hand, inaugurates a silent revolution. It allows you to look at your reflection with compassion and embrace every aspect of yourself, even those you once considered flaws or weaknesses. By recognizing your full humanity, you free yourself from needing to validate your worth through external praise or comparisons to others, and establish a new internal support point where security no longer depends on changing factors. This loving recognition of yourself begins by welcoming your thoughts and emotions without labeling them as good or bad. When you allow an unpleasant emotion to arise, whether frustration, sadness, or anger, and instead of suppressing or denying it, you observe it with curiosity, you discover that behind that feeling there's a valuable message, an unmet need, or a violated boundary. By listening without judgment, you respond with care and share responsibility, which strengthens your emotional well-being. Over time, those emotions lose their explosive charge and become internal sensors that guide you toward wiser decisions consistent with your values. Self-acceptance also transforms your relationship with your body and physical health. Instead of treating yourself harshly when you don't meet an ideal of shape or endurance, you learn to interpret your body's signals as indicators of care. Tiredness asks you for rest. Hunger calls you to nourish yourself. And pain alerts you to the need to attend injury. This paradigm shift fosters sustainable self-care habits. You sleep enough, move with pleasure, and choose foods that give you energy, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude for the gift that is your body. Likewise, the impact of this process extends to your interpersonal relationships. When you fully accept yourself without masks or pretensions, you invite others to do the same. Your presence, authentic and unadorned, disarms prejudices and reaches a more sincere level of connection. You no longer depend on others' praise to feel valued, nor avoid expressing your viewpoint for fear of conflict. A genuine dialogue then arises, where empathy and mutual respect become the foundation of enriching communication. Beyond that, self-acceptance drives your creativity. By freeing yourself from paralyzing self-demand, you allow yourself to experiment, err, and learn without fear. That creative freedom feeds innovation in any area of your life, work, personal projects, or hobbies. Every idea that emerges, no matter how wild it seems, receives a safe space to grow and transform, enriching your capacity to respond to challenges with original solutions. In the professional realm, accepting your real strengths and weaknesses generates a more honest and effective development approach. Recognizing your talents encourages you to enhance them, while admitting your areas for improvement leads you to seek learning and collaborations that complement your profile. Thus, your growth is based on a realistic and compassionate view, avoiding frustration from unreachable goals and celebrating every small advance. Finally, the impact of self-acceptance reflects in an increase of your resilience. Having cultivated your own criterion of worth, you no longer crumble facing rejection or momentary failure. Instead of nursing wounds with complaints, you rise with the certainty that any adverse experience is part of learning and that your essential value remains intact. That inner firmness translates into deep peace, which softens the turbulence of external circumstances. In summary, when you choose yourself first and embrace self-acceptance, you transform your inner world integrally. Your emotions stop controlling you. Your body becomes an ally. Your relationships flow with authenticity. Your creativity is reborn without limits. Your professional path is traced with realism, and your resilience strengthens. This impact is not an instant result, but a gradual growth that, each day, brings you closer to the fullest and most genuine version of yourself. Additionally, you discover that your emotions and thoughts begin to transform profoundly. That inner voice that once dictated judgments and limitations loses part of its strength, allowing you to experience a broader and more nuanced emotional spectrum. You no longer live trapped in cycles of self-criticism and guilt, but learn to welcome each sensation as valuable data guiding you toward greater self-knowledge. For example, anxiety, far from being an enemy to eliminate, becomes a messenger alerting you to situations that might exceed your limits. Sadness ceases to be interpreted as a sign of weakness and turns into an opportunity to connect with your vulnerability and deepest needs. Your thoughts, once governed by rigid beliefs, begin to be adopted with flexibility. You observe how inner dialogue changes. Instead of "I won't succeed," you hear "What can I learn from this challenge?" And where those "I don't deserve to be happy" emerges, "My happiness is as legitimate as anyone else's." This process does not happen by magic, but because by acting with self-choice you provoke neural retraining. You practice new mental pathways that reinforce confidence and dilute insecurity. Over time, these new thought patterns become automatic, generating a domino effect that impacts every daily decision and action. Mental clarity becomes a precious asset. Before, your mind used to wander among others' duties and unfinished projects. Now, by prioritizing your goals, you discover that you can focus your attention on what truly matters. That renewed concentration allows you to work more efficiently and enjoy each task with a sense of full presence. For example, if you spend a moment reading, you no longer anticipate pending tasks, but immerse yourself in the text and extract meaningful lessons without distractions. That conscious presence reduces stress and makes you feel more satisfied with each achievement, no matter how small. Emotional balance strengthens. When you value and care for your needs, You don't experience major imbalances from unforeseen events. Before, an isolated setback could destabilize your mood for days. Now, you accept frustration or disappointment as a natural part of life and allow those emotions to flow with less resistance. You practice self-observation. You notice the emergence of discomfort, and instead of reacting impulsively, you stop to ask yourself, what is this emotion asking of me? This conscious pause, which arises from inner flourishing, creates space to choose assertive responses instead of automatic reactions. Likewise, realistic optimism settles in your thinking. It's no longer about ignoring negative aspects, but balancing perception by recognizing both challenges and opportunities. This approach facilitates resilience, as it equips you to adapt to circumstances with constructive outlook. Instead of lamenting what's lost, you focus on the lessons derived from each experience, and that attitude propels you forward with renewed energy. To illustrate how these emotional and mental changes reflect in practice, Mario Alonso Puig shares examples from his own life. He recounts that for years he felt trapped in the rigidity of his medical training, obsessed with clinical perfection and professional recognition. Fear of error and constant self-criticism generated physical tension and emotional exhaustion. It was only when he began applying the principles of self-acceptance and self-choice to himself, dedicating time to cultivate daily reflection and recognize the value of his imperfect learning, that he discovered a radical change in his mood and quality of thought. He learned to consider each mistake as an inevitable step in the growth path and to celebrate every advance, no matter how small. On another occasion, Puig relates that when facing the uncertainty of a large-scale research project, he felt his mind scattered among doubts and catastrophic scenarios. It was then that he applied the exercise of creative visualization. He imagined himself successfully completing each phase of the project, experiencing the sensations associated with achievement. At first, it was difficult to hold that image without internal voices of failure interfering, but he persisted in daily practice. Over time, his mind began offering more creative solutions and identifying internal and external resources to move forward. That shift in mental dynamics allowed him to face the challenge with greater serenity and effectiveness, confirming that the quality of our thoughts directly influences the possibilities of success. Another significant example from Puig relates to managing his emotions during high-impact conferences. Throughout his career, he has delivered numerous talks before audiences of thousands. At first, stage fright caused sweating, tachycardia, and momentary blocks. However, by integrating self-observation and conscious breathing practices, tools he himself recommends, he managed to transform those intense emotions into a source of positive energy. Now, he relates that every time he goes on stage, he recognizes nervousness as a sign that something important is about to happen and channels that emotional activation to connect with his audience from authenticity. These examples from Mario Alonso Puig's life show how, by choosing yourself first and transforming your emotional and thought patterns, you move from rigidity to mental flexibility, from distraction to full concentration, and from reactive management to conscious assertiveness. By internalizing these teachings, your inner world ceases to be a minefield of negative emotions and becomes fertile ground where clarity, creativity, and resilience bloom. Every emotion and thought acquire a purpose, to serve as your guide rather than govern you, inviting you to a richer and more balanced life experience. After experiencing the blossoming of your inner world, the second change activated when you choose yourself first is the recovery of your authentic voice. This profound process involves rediscovering the power to be true to yourself, to express without reservation the ideas and feelings that truly dwell within you, without allowing external voices to impose their judgment or silence your message. When you learn to honor your thoughts and claim the space to share them, you begin a path of emancipation that strengthens your identity and connects you with your most genuine essence. Being true to yourself means recognizing that your voice has a unique value, supported by your experience, your knowledge, and your particular way of interpreting the world. Often, we forget that there are only two formulas for doing things: the one that arises from your conviction and the one imposed from outside. The first springs from an inexhaustible source of creativity and inner freedom. The second, no matter how well-intentioned it seems, often entails a loss of energy and authenticity. When you choose your voice above external modes, you experience a sense of fullness and coherence that permeates every aspect of your life. The process of recovering your authentic voice starts from within, with an act of courage in which you decide not to yield to group pressure or anticipated judgment. At that moment, you may feel a lump in your throat or intense fear. The fear of disapproval, of no longer fitting in, or breaking external harmony. This fear, however, is one of the clearest signs that you are on the right path, since only when you approach your internal limits do you discover the strength needed to transcend them. The fear of rejection is one of the great enemies of self-expression. For years, we have been taught to avoid friction, to not bother others, to soften our opinions to keep the peace, or to instill security in others by sacrificing our freedom of speech. But with each apparent silence, we yield ground in our inner territory and strengthen the voice of the internal critic, which feeds on our self-abandonment. It is a vicious circle. We remain silent to avoid rejection and, in doing so, reinforce the belief that our voice lacks value. To counteract the fear of rejection, it is advisable to start by expressing our ideas in safe contexts. Sharing impressions with trusted people who receive us with openness and respect is an essential first step. By speaking authentically, most of the time we receive constructive feedback, or at least create a contrast that helps us refine our message. This gradual exercise expands our communicative comfort zone and provides tangible evidence that being true to ourselves is enriching. Likewise, practicing assertiveness helps us establish the necessary boundaries to preserve our voice. Being assertive does not mean imposing our ideas or attacking opposing opinions, but communicating our thoughts with clarity and respect. Each time we discern between destructive criticism and a comment aimed at growth, we strengthen our judgment and increase emotional resilience against unjustified disapproval. In this way, we build an internal armor based on integrity, not hardness, and our message gains strength when transmitted with honesty. Learning to express what you think also requires refining your communicative style. Observe how you adapt language to context. Sometimes it will be necessary to use a diplomatic tone, other times a surprise or disruptive proposal. What matters is that the content of your message remains intact. Your truth, using metaphors, anecdotes, or examples can help you present your ideas attractively, but it should never overshadow the essential core of your perspective. With practice, you will discover a balance between form and substance that maximizes the impact of your words. The power of being true to yourself is also reflected in our ability to influence with integrity. When we communicate without masks, we inspire others to do the same. Deeper conversations arise, debates that promote mutual learning, and relationships based on transparency. By freeing ourselves from a need to please at all costs, we become references of honesty that attract like-minded people, creating collaborative networks where each participant contributes from their essence. Another fundamental aspect is recognizing that the recovery of the authentic voice is not limited to spoken language. It also includes how we express ourselves in writing through gestures, postures, and attitudes. By choosing ourselves first, we occupy the space that corresponds to us not only with words but with our entire presence. For example, when drafting a report or an email, we avoid ambiguous or vague phrases that allow misinterpretations. And when presenting ourselves in meetings, we maintain an attitude coherent with our message. Direct gaze, calm gesture, and balanced tone of voice. When you begin to defend your opinion in small everyday matters, such as choosing a weekend plan or expressing disagreement in a family meeting, each act of courage reinforces the internal structure that supports your voice. Owning these micro-decisions releases accumulated energy and shows that the space to express yourself is not a privilege, but an inherent right. Over time, these self-affirmation exercises become automatic habits. You notice how your mind seeks to project coherence between your thoughts and your actions. An extremely powerful practice to consolidate your inner voice is free writing. Dedicate a few minutes each day to write your thoughts and emotions without editing. By putting your reality into words, you recognize patterns of limiting beliefs and open the door to the internal dialogue necessary to reformulate them. This written dialogue offers a close perspective of your inner world and strengthens confidence in the validity of your ideas. Subsequently, the simple act of rereading what you wrote allows you to reconnect with your truth and celebrate your progress. Similarly, the conscious use of social media offers a scenario to practice your authenticity. Instead of replicating standard messages or yielding to popularity pressure, choose to share reflections that truly matter to you, even if they are uncomfortable or controversial. Notice the difference between content designed only to please and one that emerges from your truth. By receiving genuine comments from people who identify with your perspective, you understand that authentic resonance far surpasses superficial approval. Another key dimension consists of body work. Nonverbal language communicates as much or more than words. Maintaining an upright posture, looking forward, relaxed hands, and a firm but warm tone of voice signals to your brain and listens that your message deserves attention. If you ever perceive insecurity in your body, practice grounding exercises before speaking. Take a few seconds to feel your feet's connection with the ground and focus on conscious breathing. These bodily gestures strengthen internal conviction and project security. With each firm step, your authentic voice rises with greater force and renewed clarity each day. After having recovered the power of your authentic voice and challenged the fear of rejection, you begin to connect with stories of people who, like you, decided to free their word and transform their lives. Each testimony shows different facets of the process, but all share one point: the courage to express themselves without renouncing their own essence. A woman who for years remained silent in work meetings, fearing to overshadow more experienced colleagues, discovered that her fresh perspective was as valuable as any academic record. After attending a personal empowerment workshop, she began raising her hand in every session, sharing ideas that at first seemed trivial. With each brave contribution, she gained confidence and recognition, not only for content of her words, but for the integrity with which she spoke them, marking a before and after in her career. Another case comes from a young engineer who, accustomed to following the manual to the letter, kept his improvement suggestions silent for fear of seeming insolent, until one day, during a decisive meeting, he decided to propose an alternative to the usual design. His colleagues received him with skepticism, but the prototype he promoted reduced costs and improved performance. Sharing his experience, he confesses that had he not chosen to speak up, the project would have stalled in mediocrity. For him, recovering his voice meant contributing real value and feeling fulfilled by building from his own vision. We also find a high school teacher who used to feel anxious before each class, fearing not to meet the expectations of parents and principals. Over time, he discovered that when he taught from his personal style, including stories from his childhood and everyday examples, his students became much more engaged. He broke with the rigid curriculum script and, by doing so, found unexpected gratification. His students began participating actively, sharing their own experiences, and above all, learning enthusiastically. His testimony shows that reclaiming the authentic voice not only benefits the speaker, but also enriches those who listen. In the artistic field, a self-taught musician recounts how, after years imitating other styles, he feared showing his own composition for considering it immature. An honest comment from a mentor changed his course. Your way of combining urban rhythms with classical melodies is unique. Don't copy, express yourself. Since then, he started releasing original songs and discovered that the public connected with that genuine fusion. His musical career took off when he abandoned stylistic masks and spoke with his own voice, proving that originality flourishes when fully accepted. Moreover, an entrepreneur whose public image had always been impeccable and calculated admits that he was tired of that perfect facade that prevented him from showing vulnerability. After an episode of extreme burnout, he decided to share on social media how he dealt with anxiety and stress. The response was overwhelming. Followers thanked him for honesty and shared their own struggles. Far from damaging his reputation, that sincerity strengthened connection with his audience and opened new collaboration opportunities based on empathy. His testimony reveals that authenticity not only attracts trust, but creates stronger communities. in a different context. A volunteer from an NGO who had always listened more than spoken dared to share his personal experience with poverty and social exclusion. His story, filled with authentic emotion, moved donors and collaborators, securing funds and support for impactful projects. He acknowledged that at first, feeling shame paralyzed him. However, by deciding to speak with his authentic voice, he sparked real changes in vulnerable communities. His story highlights the transformative power of narrating lives from honesty, without filters or embellishments. All these testimonies share a key lesson. Reclaiming your authentic voice is not an act of vanity, but a gesture of service and coherence. By sharing your unique perspective, you enrich collective dialogue, inspire others to do the same, and contribute to building more genuine spaces. Likewise, you reaffirm your identity, strengthen your self-esteem, and feel a deep alignment between your inner self and your external actions. To consolidate this change, it is necessary to learn to recognize the social masks that prevent us from expressing ourselves freely. These masks are roles we adopt to fit into certain contexts. The obedient child, the impeccable colleague, the infallible leader, the compliant partner. At first, they serve a protective function, helping us survive in demanding environments. But when they remain beyond necessity, they become a prison, eroding connection with our authentic self. Identifying them is the first step to liberation. Observing situations that cause stress or discomfort often reveals the presence of a mask. For example, if you feel tension when presenting an idea before a certain group, perhaps you act from the imposter mask, believing you don't deserve your position. And this silences you. In those moments, bring attention to your body. Notice if there is stiffness in your back, tension in your jaw, or a racing pulse. These physical symptoms alert you that you are acting from an imposed role and not from your real voice. Another useful indicator is to pay attention to the words you use. When you employ overly formal expressions or frequent self-censorship, maybe I'm wrong, but you are likely adopting the people-pleaser mask to avoid controversies. Replacing those phrases with direct and honest language, my proposal is, demands courage but gradually deactivates the inner voice that doubts your right to speak. Likewise, reflecting on the expectations you believe others have of you helps dismantle masks. Write a list of roles you assume: exemplary parent, unconditional friend, perfect professional. Then, note the implicit demands in each and evaluate how much of them really comes from your desire versus external pressure. By questioning those expectations, you reduce their power over your behavior and open space to express your genuine voice. A practical exercise to free yourself from masks is to practice reverse assertiveness. Choose a daily situation where you tend to adopt a compliant role and consciously change it. If you always yield initiative to plans others propose, this time suggest the activity yourself. Observe your internal dialogue and how others react. With each small revolution, you weaken the mask and strengthen your authenticity. It is also valuable to cultivate self-observation during conversations. While speaking, take brief pauses and ask yourself, am I saying this for my truth or to please? This habit will train you to detect in time the detours towards social masks and return to the center of your voice. With practice, those pauses become a natural quality of your communication, promoting more conscious and sincere interaction. To go deeper, you can use the mirror technique. Stand in front of a mirror and speak about a topic that excites you. Observe your gestures, face, and posture. Detect if there are mechanical gestures or forced expressions that betray a mask. Practice until you notice a sensation of comfort and harmony between what you say and how you say it. This training strengthens body-mind-word alignment, consolidating your authentic voice. Freeing yourself from social masks does not mean abandoning respect or courtesy. It means communicating without excuses or disguises. By becoming aware of your masks and deactivating them, you discover that your voice flows easily and your messages achieve greater resonance. Society appreciates clarity and coherence, and you experience the satisfaction of expressing yourself with integrity. In conclusion, The testimonies of those who reclaim their authentic voice show that the process, although challenging, yields extraordinary fruits: genuine recognition, deeper relationships, and a renewed sense of purpose. At the same time, learning to identify and free yourself from social masks protects you from self-abandonment, ensuring that your word always springs from your most genuine self. In this way, you advance steadily on the path of self-choice, participating in the world's dialogue from your unmistakable truth. When you recover your authentic voice, the third change that happens when you choose yourself first is the establishment of healthy boundaries. These boundaries act as protective fences that define your emotional and mental space, fundamental to cultivating integral health. Without them, you expose yourself to continuous wear, exhaustion, and erosion of your self-esteem. In contrast, adequate boundaries allow you to attend to your needs clearly and define how far you permit others to intervene in your life. The importance of boundaries for your mental health lies in marking the contour between what belongs to you and what belongs to others. When you don't establish these edges, your energy dissipates in others' requests, overwhelming demands, and bonds that drag you toward burnout. This results in chronic stress, anxiety, and a persistent sense of emptiness. On the contrary, by setting boundaries, you generate an internal structure that protects you from excess stimuli and gives you permission to prioritize your well-being. You consciously decide which activities, relationships, or responsibilities to accept and which to reject to maintain your balance. Moreover, clear boundaries foster the development of solid self-esteem. By affirming what is outside your domain, whether inappropriate behavior, an overwhelming request, or destructive criticism, you send a powerful message. You respect and value yourself. That respect you show yourself reflects in your posture, your tone of voice, and your overall attitude. In this way, your environment perceives your determination and learns to interact with you from reciprocity and consideration. Boundaries not only protect, but, paradoxically, attract healthier and more authentic relationships. To better understand the importance of boundaries, imagine your mental health as a water reservoir. Each external demand, an email outside work hours, constant emotional attention to someone unresponsive, and excessive favor, lowers your level a bit. If you don't stop those drainages in time, you'll end up dry, without strength to face your own projects or sustain your well-being. Setting boundaries is like turning off the tap before the reservoir runs out, allowing your life to flow abundantly, and ensuring you always have internal resources to face new challenges. How to identify toxic relationships requires a close look at interaction patterns. In a healthy relationship, there's a balance between giving and receiving. Communication is open and respectful, and each party attends to their own needs without invading the other's autonomy. Toxic relationships, on the other hand, show clear imbalances: abuses of power, constant criticism, emotional manipulation, or unreasonable expectations. Identifying them means observing how you feel after each encounter. If you often leave feeling stressed, guilty, or inferior, that connection likely crosses your personal line of mental health. Another indicator of toxicity is lack of reciprocity. When you're always the one offering support, time, or understanding without receiving the same in return, an imbalance drains your energy. You can recognize if you find yourself canceling your own plans to attend to others' emergencies or feeling guilty for prioritizing your activities. This behavior damages your sense of self-worth, as it reinforces the belief that your needs are secondary. It is also crucial to pay attention to dynamics of blame and victimhood. In a toxic bond, blame is inverted. If something goes wrong, you are ultimately responsible, even if you have no direct relation to the cause. Constant justifications for harmful behavior, like, "I do it for your own good," or "I've always been like this," are signs of manipulation that cross respect boundaries. Identifying them allows you to put distance and reinforce your internal judgment. Emotional manipulation is another common characteristic. Those who control your decisions through effective blackmail, such as provoking guilt, threatening abandonment, or using silence as punishment, violate your essential boundaries. This strategy works because undermining your security makes you give in. However, recognizing the pattern and naming the conduct as unacceptable gives you back the power to set your border and protect your integrity. A fourth aspect to detect is the imposition of rigid expectations. If a relationship imposes fixed roles on you, such as "you are my unconditional confidant," "you must always be available," or "you cannot change your plans without telling me," you face a form of control that limits your freedom. That constant pressure to meet others' demands creates an unhealthy dependency that undermines your autonomy. Identifying those demands is the first step to reclaim your right to decide and be responsible only for what you choose to take on. The invalidation of your emotions also reveals toxicity. In a healthy relationship, each person's feelings are respected and validated. If, on the contrary, someone dismisses your emotions, say you have no right to feel sad, angry, or anxious, you face a pattern of invalidation that destabilizes your inner world. This behavior manifests in phrases like "don't exaggerate," "it's not that bad," or "stop complaining." Recognizing that invalidation helps you affirm your emotions as legitimate and restore your emotional boundary. Exaggerating minor conflicts is another reflection of toxicity. In certain relationships, a small disagreement triggers disproportionate responses, shouting insults or threats. This emotional escalation seeks to intimidate you, generating fear to express your opinion. If you notice that small disagreements become crises, identify the dynamic as a violation of your coexistence boundaries and clarify that you deserve balanced and respectful treatment. Finally, evaluate the level of mutual admiration and support. In a healthy bond, both value achievements and celebrate each other's successes without envy. If you perceive hidden competitiveness, disparaging comments about your achievements, or minimization of your abilities, you face a relationship that clouds your self-esteem. Identifying this pattern empowers you to reevaluate your environment and define how far you allow someone to influence your self-perception. Ultimately, establishing healthy boundaries and learning to identify toxic relationships are key steps of the third major change that occurs when you choose yourself first. By drawing these borders, you protect your mental health, reinforce your self-esteem, and surround yourself with bonds that nourish instead of drain. With that solid foundation, you prepare to explore the next level of transformation in your life, where you will experience profound change in the quality of your relationships. Now, with boundaries defined and your internal space protected, it is time to learn to say no with clarity and respect, thereby preserving your energy for what truly matters. Saying no is not an act of selfishness, but of self-care. It means recognizing that your time, attention, and well-being have a value that deserves respect. To facilitate this process, here are some practical examples and tips to help you establish this word as a firm pillar of your relationships and daily life. First, use direct and simple language. Avoid circumlocutions that confuse or invite the other person to insist. For example, if a colleague asks you to take on additional tasks when your schedule is already full, respond, "I'm sorry, but I can't take on that task this time." This brief and clear phrase communicates your position without lengthy explanations. By keeping the response concise, you reduce the risk of unnecessary debates and reinforce that your boundaries are firm. Another tip is to offer an alternative when possible and appropriate. If you wish to maintain good terms in a relationship, if a friend invites you to a social event at a time that conflicts with your rest or a personal commitment, you could say, "Thanks for the invitation, but I already have plans. I'd love to meet another day. How about next Thursday for coffee?" This way, you assert your no without closing the door to the meeting and show that you value the relationship while caring for your space. Practicing the sandwich technique can be helpful on delicate occasions. It consists of framing your refusal between two positive phrases. First, an acknowledgement of the request, then your no, and finally, a gesture of goodwill. For example, "I appreciate you thinking of me for this project. However, I won't be able to participate this time. I wish you much success with it and trust you will find support you need." Thus, you communicate your decision with empathy and reinforce mutual respect. Likewise, It is essential to pay attention to your tone of voice and body language. When saying no, maintain an upright posture, look at the interlocutor, and use a firm but kind tone. Avoid murmuring or looking away, as these may convey doubts that invite negotiation of your refusal. A calm tone and confident presence reinforce the message and help you maintain a decision without yielding to external pressure. Learning to say no also requires managing the guilt that may arise. Internally recognize that protecting your time and well-being is a valuable responsibility both for yourself and for those who benefit from your full presence. When you feel remorse, remember that each time you say yes unwillingly, you dilute your capacity to contribute with quality and enthusiasm. Repeating phrases like, "My care is as important as others," will help deactivate guilt and reaffirm your stance. A practical method to gain confidence in saying no is to rehearse it out loud before facing the real situation. Practice your responses in front of a mirror or with a trusted friend. This simulation allows you to adjust your words, tone, and body language until you feel comfortable and confident. With each practice, you will reduce the anxiety that accompanies potential rejection and strengthen your communication skills. Also, establish clear criteria for your no's. Define beforehand which situations or types of requests you will consider non-negotiable and which you might accept under certain conditions. For example, you might decide not to answer emails outside work hours, not to do favors that interfere with your family time, or not to participate in activities that do not align with your values. These criteria function as a practical filter that allows you to make quick decisions consistent with your well-being. It is also useful to employ the reflection time technique. If a request catches you by surprise or causes doubts, you can buy some space to think, "Let me check my schedule, and I'll let you know tomorrow if I can help." With this pause, you avoid a rushed yes and give yourself time to evaluate if you really want to commit. Most of the time, that delay reveals that you prefer to preserve your time, and you end up declining the request more easily. In some cases, you might need to repeat your no if the other party insists. For this, use the increasing gravity technique. Maintain your refusal firmly but without aggression, repeating the key phrase. For example, "I appreciate you reminding me, but I can't do it," without adding justifications that open the door to new objections. This consistent reinforcement sends a message that your decision is final and deserves respect. It is also important to take care of the setting in which you deliver your refusal. If possible, choose a time and place where both feel comfortable so that the conversation occurs in an environment of mutual respect. Avoid addressing delicate matters when the interlocutor is visibly stressed or distracted, as this may intensify emotional reactions and make it difficult to maintain your boundaries. To illustrate the effectiveness of these tips, Mario Alonso Puig shares a personal testimony in his trainings. He recounts the moment when, as head of medical department, he used to accept all tasks delegated by his superiors, believing that this would show commitment and loyalty. However, this practice led to endless work days, greater risk of errors, and increasing physical and emotional exhaustion. One day he realized that by not saying no to certain activities, he was compromising the quality of his work and his health. He then decided to apply a new approach. He established clear criteria for accepting new projects, documenting deadlines and necessary resources, and learned to assertively reject requests that exceeded his capacity or did not align with the professional mission. With this practice, he not only regained time to reflect and train, but also significantly improved his team's performance. His testimony shows that saying no in a structured and respectful way not only saves your mental balance, but also increases effectiveness and quality of collective results. Likewise, Puig recounts how that change allowed him to spend more time with his family and on his personal growth. By not taking on tasks that did not belong to him, he was able to actively participate in his children's education and resume creative projects he had postponed. He relates that at the start of each week, he reviews his calendar and evaluates whether there is coherence between his commitments and his real priorities. This weekly review exercise helps him stay faithful to his boundaries and enjoy sustainable well-being. In summary, learning to say no is an art that combines clarity, empathy, and firmness. With direct language, an assertive tone, and well-defined criteria, you can preserve your mental and emotional space without damaging your relationships. Practicing your responses, using the sandwich or reflection time techniques, and reinforcing your decision when faced with insistence are strategies that consolidate your skill. Moreover, Mario Alonso Puig's testimony shows that this change, far from being a sacrifice, leads to substantial improvement in your performance, health, and quality of life. By choosing yourself first and confidently respecting your boundaries, you create a solid foundation for your well-being and nurture authentic and balanced bonds with those around you. If this section has inspired you to strengthen your boundaries and learn to say no with confidence, like the video, share in the comments an experience where you set a healthy boundary and how it made you feel. And don't forget to subscribe to continue receiving practical tools that help you prioritize yourself. Let's continue. After strengthening your boundaries and demonstrating the value of your voice, the fourth great change that arises when you choose yourself first is the transformation of your relationships with those around you. Choosing yourself means presenting yourself to the world with deep integrity, and that internal coherence immediately reflects in the way you connect with others. When your behavior results from your values and self-care, those who interact with you naturally notice your authenticity. This creates fertile ground for stronger and more satisfying bonds. The basis of this relational improvement lies in the quality of your self-image. By prioritizing your well-being, you send a message that you deserve attention and respect, and this modifies others' expectations of you. You are no longer the interlocutor willing to do everything, but someone clear about their own limits and motivations. This positioning, far from pushing away those who appreciate you, attracts those who share your worldview. More balanced conversations arise where each participant contributes freely and without exhausting themselves in unnecessary concessions. Another key aspect is the coherence between your words and actions. When you say yes or no, according to your inner truth, you stop generating misunderstandings. People learn to trust your commitments because they know you won't give in under pressure or lighten your word to please. That healthy predictability strengthens ties and facilitates collaboration. In turn, you feel more comfortable in interactions since you don't waste energy on pretenses or calibrating your behavior to please others' expectations. Choosing yourself first also means developing empathetic presence. Having worked on your own inner world, you now have cognitive and emotional space to listen actively to others. Instead of anticipating your response or inventing quick solutions, you practice open listening, observing your interlocutor's words and gestures without judgment. This mindful attention validates the other's experience and strengthens a bond as the person perceives that their story matters and is valued in an environment of respect. When you identify authentic connections, you notice that you no longer seek general approval, but focus on cultivating bonds that bring positive energy and growth. You recognize more clearly who shares your values and who merely seeks to take advantage of your willingness to help. This discernment arises from your practice of self-choice. You understand which kind of company nurtures your development and which relationships cause wear. By focusing your time and attention on authentic connections, you elevate the quality of your interactions. Furthermore, by choosing yourself first, your capacity for empathy is reinforced. You experience a deep understanding of your own limits and needs, which makes you more sensitive to those of others. This balanced sensitivity prevents you from overextending yourself or losing your emotional center trying to solve others' problems. You listen warmly, offer genuine support, and know when to step back to avoid absorbing tensions that are not yours. In this way, your relationships flourish in a terrain of mutual respect. Sincerity becomes an essential pillar. By communicating your feelings honestly and respectfully, you avoid hidden resentments. If something bothers you, you express it clearly and without aggression, allowing the other person to understand your perspective and adjust their behavior. This transparency reduces ambiguity and strengthens trust, as both parties know they can express their needs and expectations without fear of reprisals. Trust grows when communication flows openly, Conscious attention also extends its benefits to your broader social circles. In gatherings, you maintain your full presence and your authentic connections emerge in every conversation. You can shift from light dialogue to deep conversation, adjusting your level of openness intentionally. That relational flexibility makes you approachable and accessible, yet personal and truthful. People reconnect with the truth of their own experiences by feeling your integrity, enriching any exchange. Another revealing effect is the resilience of the bond. Instead of fearing conflict, you manage disagreements with calmness and clarity. Your practice of choosing yourself first gives you a base of self-respect that cushions inevitable clashes and promotes collaborative solutions. In this way, your relationships strengthen with each challenge overcome, as each disagreement becomes an opportunity for mutual understanding and learning. By choosing yourself first and presenting yourself with coherence, you create a relational space where vulnerability ceases to be a risk and becomes a bridge of connection. When you share your doubts, fears, and aspirations in balance, you invite others to do the same. This authentic exchange generates an emotional safety climate where each individual can show themselves without masks. In that environment, vulnerable conversations nourish mutual trust and foster joint growth. Healthy reciprocity arises naturally as you evolve in your practice of self-choice. You no longer give out of compliance nor receive out of obligation. You exchange genuine gestures of care and support. For example, when a friend goes through a difficult time, you offer your full presence by listening without judgment, and at the same time, you know you can count on the support when needed. This balanced flow of giving and receiving reinforces the feeling that relationships are not empty transactions, but bonds full of meaning. Authenticity and feedback is another element that flourishes when you choose yourself first. Instead of falling into destructive criticism or hollow flattery, you learn to give and receive constructive comments with an attitude of continuous improvement. When you provide feedback from honesty and a desire to build, you offer valuable tools for the other to evolve. And by being open to receiving observations about your own growth areas, you demonstrate humility and willingness for mutual learning. Additionally, by reclaiming your time and caring for your well-being, you implicitly transmit the importance of celebrating achievements, big or small. Sharing genuine celebrations with your loved ones, a personal breakthrough, a completed project, or a simple moment of joy, activates the group's positive energy and reinforces a sense of belonging. These authentic celebrations give a festive tone to your relationships and remind that every achievement, however small, deserves recognition and shared joy. The quality of long-term bonds improves substantially. Relationships built on self-choice and authenticity better withstand the test of time and adverse circumstances. When each party has practiced self-care, a solid and balanced alliance arises. It does not depend on mutual dependence, but on conscious interdependence, where both contribute to a shared project. This model of mature and resilient relationship becomes a source of unwavering security and motivation. When you share a common vision and respect individual horizons, your relationships enrich with a shared purpose. Establishing collaborative projects that integrate your passions and those of your counterpart strengthens the sense of teamwork. Whether planning a trip, designing a project, or simply dreaming together personal goals, that alliance activates synergies that only emerge when each contributes from their authenticity. The result is a dynamic bond, full of motivation and a clear sense of shared mission. Finally, the transformative effect of choosing yourself first is reflected in mutual inspiration. By seeing you care for yourself and express yourself freely, others feel motivated to imitate that example. Without pressure, positive energy spreads and virtuous cycles of growth arise. Each person who decides to prioritize their own well-being brings light to their environment, and that light multiplies, drawing a fabric of authentic, balanced, and vibrant relationships where personal and collective flourishing is powerfully enhanced with shared gratitude. Letting go of bonds that no longer benefit your growth is an act of courage and self-love, as it implies recognizing that your well-being is priority and that your energy deserves to be invested in connections that nourish your life. When you choose yourself first, you understand that clinging to toxic or exhausting relationships is like carrying a constant weight that consumes your emotional resources. Letting go of a draining relationship is not limited to abruptly cutting communication, but to making conscious decisions that restore your balance. First, you must identify which interactions cause you recurring discomfort. Observe how you feel after talking to certain people. If you frequently experience sadness, anxiety, irritation, or discouragement, it may be a bond that drains your energy. Recognizing that pattern is the first step to freeing yourself from the accumulated emotional load. Once the relationship is identified, analyze the dynamic that makes it exhausting. It may involve repetitive behaviors of criticism, manipulation, or lack of support that undermine your self-esteem and inner peace. Sometimes the other person is unaware of the impact of their actions, so it is advisable to initiate an honest conversation where you express your feelings and your desire to change the relationship. This dialogue, conducted assertively, can open the door to new agreements or at least clarify mutual expectations. If after this attempt the dynamic persists, it signals that toxic patterns are too entrenched and the relationship requires greater distancing. The next step is to progressively reduce contact. This may mean spacing out calls, responding less frequently, or avoiding social meetings that are stressful. This gradual distancing allows you to clearly assess whether the other person shows willingness to change, or if, on the contrary, harmful behaviors continue. During this process, it is crucial to care for your internal dialogue. Feelings of guilt or fear of being labeled selfish or ungrateful may arise. To counter these emotions, remember that prioritizing your mental health is not an act of unlove, but a self-care. Repeat affirmations that reinforce your right to protect your personal space, such as, "I deserve relationships that nourish me," or "setting boundaries is a sign of respect for myself." These phrases will help you sustain the distancing process without allowing guilt to derail you. Likewise, it is important to seek support from trusted people while managing this change. Sharing your decision with close friends or family provides containment and perspective, helping you maintain your decision firmly. By verbalizing your reasons, you reinforce your commitment and avoid falling back into the old dynamic out of pity or social pressure. The accompaniment of people who respect your process strengthens your conviction and offers an emotional refuge where you can renew yourself. In certain extreme cases, a more drastic cut may be necessary, especially when a relationship involves emotional abuse, severe manipulation, or destructive behaviors. In these situations, distancing yourself immediately protects your integrity and sends a clear message of rejection to any form of mistreatment. Although this step often causes a stronger impact, in the long run it allows you to regain your center and rebuild your inner world more quickly. Letting go of draining relationships also requires redefining your social space. By distancing yourself from harmful interactions, you can dedicate time to strengthening healthy connections or creating new bonds. Participating in group activities where your values and interests are shared facilitates meeting like-minded people who bring positivity to your life. This proactive approach helps you fill the gap left by the draining relationship with enriching and motivating experiences. Another essential aspect is learning to set clear boundaries in advance, so new relationships do not repeat old patterns. At the beginning of a bond, communicate your needs honestly. The time you dedicate to yourself, the hours in which you prefer not to be interrupted, or the topics you consider inappropriate to discuss. These early signals prevent unrealistic expectations from forming and create a framework of mutual respect from the start. As you progress in this process, it is normal to experience moments of doubt or nostalgia, especially if the draining relationship lasted a long time or strong emotional ties existed. At those times, revisit your reasons for distancing and remember the negative emotions that frequently arose. Letting go is not about erasing memories, but freeing yourself from the burden that impedes your growth. Keep a journal where you note your reflections and progress. This way, you can observe your progress and reaffirm your decision with concrete evidence. The impact of letting go of draining relationships extends positively to your close circle. When you free yourself from harmful interactions, you release energy to invest in the ties that truly matter. Your close friends and family notice your increased vitality and renewed mood. Seeing you more present and balanced, they feel motivated to share quality moments with you, generating a multiplying effect of collective well-being. Additionally, your example of self-care inspires those around you to evaluate their own relationships. Seeing you prioritize your mental health, they may question whether they maintain bonds that drain their energy. This indirect influence creates an environment of collective awareness. The group learns to value the importance of maintaining healthy relationships and to support each other in setting boundaries. In the workplace, letting go of draining dynamics with toxic colleagues or bosses favors your performance and professional satisfaction. By not allowing yourself to be dragged down by negativity or excessive demands, you can focus on your work with greater efficiency and creativity. This attitude change improves your work climate and simultaneously elevates your reputation as someone who cares for their well-being without sacrificing professional commitment. For your family, your decision to let go of damaging relationships works as a powerful message of self-love and mutual respect. When family members observe how you protect your space, they learn to generate their own boundaries and recognize the importance of caring for their emotional health. In this way, your liberation process contributes to strengthening family dynamics with new agreements and forms a relationship based on reciprocity and mutual support. In the realm of friendship, letting go of those who no longer contribute also means opening space to expand your close circle. By having more emotional and temporal availability, you can deepen authentic friendships consistent with your worldview. Sharing projects, enjoying common interests, and supporting each other in mutual challenges are experiences that reinforce the sense of community and shared purpose. On a personal level, the act of letting go of draining relationships substantially strengthens your self-esteem. Each time you decide to put your well-being ahead of social pressure, you reaffirm your right to be treated with respect. That constant reiteration of your inner value reinforces your confidence and teaches you that you deserve bonds based on solidarity and mutual appreciation. In summary, letting go of draining relationships and observing the impact on your close circle is a crucial phase of the transformation you experience when you choose yourself first. By releasing emotional interference, you create renewed space for authentic and enriching connections. Your environment perceives your change, is inspired by your courage, and collaborates in building a healthier relational universe. Thus, your choice to prioritize yourself not only improves your life, but extends its benefits to those around you, generating a shared well-being effect that multiplies the power of your healthy boundaries and transformed relationships. The next and final great change when you choose yourself first is the finding of inner peace and renewed clarity. When you learn to set healthy boundaries, express your authentic voice, and direct your energy toward valuable connections, you discover that amid external turbulences, you can cultivate a space of deep calm. This haven arises from your continuous practice of choosing yourself. It is a state in which, even surrounded by chaos, you maintain a serenity that guides you with lucidity. How to find peace amid chaos begins with understanding that tranquility is not the total absence of stimuli, but the capacity to observe them without being carried away. Imagine a lake stirred by the wind. The surface may fill with waves, but beneath there's a firm and silent bed. Your mind functions similarly. Worries, pending tasks, and unforeseen events generate waves. But if you connect with your essence, you access that unalterable depth. The first step is to recognize your thoughts and emotions without fighting them. Instead of feeling like a victim of external pressure, you become a conscious witness of what happens inside you. To do this, practice momentary self-observation. Place your attention on the sensations in your body, just as an intense emotion arises. Notice your breathing, chest tension, or rapid pulse. By identifying these signs, you avoid reacting automatically and create a mental pause that allows you to choose an integrated response. This simple act of bringing awareness to the present works as a stress relief valve, preventing you from dissipating your energy on future ghosts or past regrets. Another key element is accepting reality as it is, without wishing it were different. Often, resistance to what happens generates additional suffering. Refusing to accept a delay, a criticism, or an unexpected change multiplies tension. Instead, Recognizing the situation honestly. This is happening and I cannot control it. Releases part of the emotional load. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It is taking contact with the real starting point from which you can choose the best available actions. A powerful practice to find peace amid the whirlwind is brief moments of conscious rest. Throughout the day, dedicate just 1 minute to disconnect from the outside. Close your eyes and bring attention to your breathing or any point in your body. The sensations of your feet against the ground, the weight of your back on the chair, the touch of clothing on your skin. With this simple pause, you reconnect with your center and clear your mind of accumulated distractions. Even if the clock marks only 60 seconds, your nervous system receives safety signals that reduce stress activation. Likewise, external order can facilitate internal peace. A chaotic environment, stacked documents, constant notifications, continuous interruptions, feeds mental agitation. Dedicate a few minutes to organize your workspace or home, removing unnecessary objects and assigning a place for everything. This tangible cleaning provides a sense of control and calm that extends to your mind. An orderly environment not only reduces stimulus load, but also reinforces your perception of safety and clarity. In parallel, conscious energy management is vital. Identify the most frequent sources of pressure, a manager who demands immediate responses, a constantly active chat group, a project without clear planning. For each, establish an interaction protocol. Let others know your availability times, silence notifications outside your hours, or segment work blocks where interruptions are not allowed. With these measures, you reduce the feeling of being pulled from 1,000 fronts and give yourself spaces to sustain calm. To connect with your essence and sustain inner peace, self-reflection exercises are transformative. An effective exercise is evocative writing. Choose a notebook dedicated to your inner world and write uncensored about what worries or excites you. Do not judge yourself. Simply transcribe what arises. Then, reread your words with compassion. Identify recurring thought patterns and underline phrases that express your deepest values. By putting your voice on paper, you release tensions and rediscover your essence's compass. Another practice consists of the consciousness map. Draw 2 concentric circles on a sheet. In the center, note your basic needs: rest, connection, purpose. In the outer ring, write usual external demands, deadlines, meetings, paperwork. Observe the distance between them. If demands invade your center, your energy becomes compromised. This visual exercise helps you make decisions more aligned with your essence, reinforcing the boundary that protects inner peace. Creating symbolic rituals also anchors your connection with your essence. It can be something as simple as lighting a candle at the start of your workday, placing a natural stone on your desk, or briefly playing a musical piece that evokes serenity. These external gestures, repeated with intention, act as reminders that your priority is to maintain that internal space. Over time, your mind will learn to associate a ritual with the desired calm state, facilitating entry into the depth of your being. Likewise, contact with nature, when possible, reinforces mental clarity. Walking a few minutes outdoors, observing the sky, or simply touching a plant restores connection with natural cycles that operate beyond the frantic human rhythm. Even if you live in a city, you can recreate that sensation by placing a small plant element next to your workspace or looking out the window at the sky. Green and natural light are powerful catalysts of peace and help your mind expand. To deepen connection with your essence, practice internal visualization. Imagine your interior as a comfortable and bright place, a forest clearing, a cozy cave, or the inside of a quiet building. See yourself entering that space, feeling the temperature, perceiving aromas, and hearing sounds that convey calm. Maintain that image for a few moments and allow it to nourish you. This imaginary experience, when repeated, strengthens the neural circuits associated with serenity and gives you quick access to clarity when you need it most. Breath balance is another fundamental resource. When you notice tension increasing, practice the 4-6-7 rhythm. Inhale counting 4, hold the air counting 6, and exhale counting 7. By lengthening the exhalation, You activate the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for relaxation. Repeat this cycle several times until you feel your heart rate slow and your mind clear. This exercise can be integrated at key moments of the day, before starting a meeting, after receiving a stressful notification, or simply upon waking and going to bed. To maintain inner peace, regularly review your core values and evaluate if your daily actions align with them. Constant deviation from your principles generates dissonance and discomfort. Each week, dedicate a moment to review your values and note at least one concrete action you have taken in coherence with them. This check reinforces a sense of integrity and ensures your life flows with a clear purpose, laying the foundation for peace and clarity. Inner peace is a dynamic state, not a fixed destination. It requires daily practice and constant adjustments, because the environment will always change. But by choosing yourself first, you have built solid internal tools to navigate any circumstance with composure. Each of the previous practices, self-observation, conscious acceptance, brief rest, external order, rituals, and energy management, acts as a support that brings you back to center. In this way, even if external chaos persists, your inner peace and renewed clarity remain intact, serving as a constant foundation for which you advance with confidence and serenity. Additionally, you can integrate meditation and silence as essential pillars of your well-being. Incorporating these spaces of stillness not only deepens your connection with yourself, but enhances emotional stability and the capacity for conscious response to any challenge. Instead of seeing meditation as an isolated activity or silence as an uncomfortable void, you turn them into daily tools to sustain your inner balance. The importance of meditation lies in the ability to train your attention and develop a conscious presence that transcends mental dialogue. By sitting a few minutes each day to observe your breathing, you allow thoughts to arrange like clouds in a wide sky. You don't need to cling to any, you simply let them pass. This act of detachment reduces the intensity of emotional reactivity, as your mind no longer interprets each idea as an order to follow, but as a passing event. Over time, this practice creates a mental space where lucidity renews continuously and where creativity finds fertile ground to arise unobstructed. On the other hand, silence acts as the natural complement of meditation. In a world where stimuli are constant, cultivating moments of authentic silence, without music, without urban noise, even without the overly insistent inner voice, allows you to access a subtler level of self-knowledge. This silence is not an end in itself, but an intentional pause that resets your nervous system and connects you with the deepest layers of your being. In those moments, you can perceive sensations, intuitions, or needs that go unnoticed in the usual pace of life. To integrate meditation and silence into your daily routine, start by assigning a specific space and time. It can be upon waking before checking your phone, or in the late afternoon as a close to your day. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and bring attention to the sensation of air entering and leaving. If your mind wanders, gently return to the anchor of breathing without judgment. These sessions can last from 2 minutes at first, gradually increasing to 10 or 15. Consistency is more powerful than duration, as your nervous system adjusts to the frequency and begins to recognize these moments as sacred. As you deepen meditation, you will discover that inner silence expands beyond the mental pause. It becomes a state of presence that transfers to your activities. When washing dishes, you do so with full awareness of the water, the touch of your hand, and the sound of the stream. When walking down the street, you perceive the rhythm of your body and the cadence of your steps. This contemplative way of life gives you stable peace even when the environment seems chaotic, because your reference is no longer external, but in that cultivated inner stillness. Mario Alonso Puig has summarized the value of this approach in phrases that resonate powerfully. The best decision you can make is the one born from the silence of your heart. In stillness, we discover the truth that dwells beyond words. The mind expands when it keeps silence and allows inner wisdom to emerge. These phrases are not mere inspiring quotes, but reminders that silence and attention are the channels through which deep clarity arrives. Another of his key affirmations is, Each conscious breath is a vow of love toward your essential being. From this perspective, meditation becomes an act of compassion toward yourself, a gesture of recognition that your worth does not depend on productivity or external approval. Each time you allow silence to settle in your mind, you renew that vow and nourish your self-esteem from its most authentic roots. Furthermore, Puig highlights, silence is not the absence of sound but the presence of oneself. This idea redefines how you experience solitude and rest. They are no longer moments of inactivity, but opportunities to meet yourself in your purest state. Simply stopping your agenda to observe your inner world becomes a revolutionary practice that breaks with the belief that constant action is the only path to success. Incorporating these practices also strengthens your emotional resilience. When facing difficult situations, such as interpersonal conflict or a work crisis, the most effective response arises from a space of inner calm. Instead of reacting impulsively, your meditation-trained mind evaluates the situation with equanimity, opts for creative solutions, and avoids rash decisions. This capacity for conscious response minimizes stress and reinforces your trust in your own inner wisdom. For beginners, it is helpful to use guided meditations that provide auditory support and structure the process. Over time, you'll develop your own silent practice, adjusting your breathing rhythm and deepening your observation of bodily sensations. The essential thing is to maintain an attitude of curiosity and acceptance. You do not seek immediate results nor judge your performance, but explore your inner world with openness. Likewise, cultivating silence in daily life enhances the quality of your interactions. By starting a conversation or meeting with a brief moment of silence, you generate a pause that invites attention, both your own and others. This simple gesture emphasizes the importance of listening before speaking and creates an atmosphere of respect. As a result, each word you utter gains more weight, as it is born from a space of reflection and not haste. In summary, integrating meditation and silence into your life, as proposed by Alonso Puig, leads you to a state of inner peace and renewed clarity, fundamental to sustaining yourself in the long term. By practicing mindful attention and stillness, you anchor your well-being in a stable and inexhaustible source. And, as Puig states, the most valuable journey is the one that takes you inward, where you will find a fullness you have always sought. As you close this journey, it is worth recapping the positive changes that have blossomed in your life by choosing yourself first. First, you learn to silence external noise and rediscover who you truly are, cultivating a fertile inner world where your dreams and values find space to grow freely. Then you experience the power of self-acceptance, that revolutionary force that transforms your relationship with your thoughts and body, freeing you from the tyranny of judgment and allowing you to recognize yourself as a being worthy of respect and care. Next, you reclaimed your authentic voice, challenging fear of rejection, and leaving behind the social mask that prevented you from expressing yourself with integrity, to share your ideas and experiences without sacrificing your essence. The third change manifested in setting healthy boundaries, those borders that protect your mental health and teach you to say no with empathy and firmness, ensuring that your energy is devoted to what really matters. The fourth change reflected in the transformation of your relationships. By presenting yourself a coherent and empathetic presence, you identified authentic connections, cultivated reciprocity, and built solid bonds based on honesty and mutual respect. The fifth great change was the inner peace and renewed clarity you attained. By incorporating meditation practices, mindful pauses, and silence rituals, you learn to find a refuge of serenity even amid chaos, aligning your life with a deeper purpose. These 5 changes are not isolated stages, but links in the same chain that sustain your integral well-being. Each one nourishes the previous and projects toward the next, creating an ascending spiral of self-knowledge, empowerment, and connection. Your inner world became a living garden, your words tinted with authenticity, your boundaries turned into guardians of your energy, your relationships vibrated in tune with honesty, and your inner peace became a guiding light in the most uncertain days. I want to remind you that this process of choosing yourself first is not an act of selfishness, but of conscious responsibility. Prioritizing your well-being is the only way to truly be available to others without exhausting yourself in constant concessions. When you gift yourself attention, respect, and affection, you generate a current of renewed energy that drives you to give with greater quality, presence, and generosity. Choosing yourself first is ultimately the key that opens the door to a fuller, more conscious life coherent with your purpose. If you made it this far, I invite you to take the last step of this journey. Like this video if these teachings resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any practical tools. And share in the comments an experience where you decided to prioritize yourself and saw a positive change in your life. Also, write the word Renacer so that in the next video I can give you a special shout out and acknowledge your courage in choosing yourself first. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey of transformation. I wish you peace, clarity, and the strength needed to keep alive the commitment to love yourself a little more every day. See you soon.